Two people, same job, same salary, same 9 to 5 grind. Both of them want to escape and build something of their own. 5 years later, one of them accomplished it, and the other is still stuck talking about someday. And the difference has nothing to do with talent, nothing to do with luck, and only to do with a few specific characteristics. Today, I'm going to break down exactly what those are. The difference between someone who's able to leave the 9 to 5 successfully versus the person who stays stuck forever. Because once you see these characteristics laid out, you can decide who you want to be. Let's dive in. Here's the first one, and this is the biggest blocker I tend to see. The people who stay stuck in the 9 to 5 and aren't able to actually achieve their goal are obsessed with certainty. And I actually think good students are the worst at this. Let me explain. If you did well in school, you're trained to follow one very specific system. In school, you get one shot. So if you fail a test, it's not like you can retake the test and get 100% and be fine. You get one shot to get an A, and an A is over 90% correct. And that is often the minimum expectation for a lot of people. They're unsatisfied if they get anything below 90% on their first try of doing something. If you don't get that 90%, your GPA drops and there's no redo. So what does that teach? It teaches you to only do things you're 100% certain of getting absolutely 100% correct. Because why would you, right? Why would you take a risk on anything if you get one shot and you need 90+% to succeed? You'll never take risks because one mistake permanently damages your record. And that conditioning is completely backwards for business. In business, you try 10 things, 9 of them fail, but one pays for all the rest. And that one makes everything worth it. For example, if I make 100 YouTube videos, 95 of them are going to fail, but it'll be 5 that go viral that pay for all the rest of them. But if you have that school mindset, then you'll never take the risk because it's not worth trying unless you are guaranteed to succeed, which you will never be in anything in the world of entrepreneurship or business. In business, you don't need 90% certainty to take action. You just need 10%. And you just keep trying that 10% over and over and over and over again. And then 1 out of 10, you're good to go. But people who are trained from the school system only act when they're absolutely certain, which means never. They sit there researching, planning, and waiting for guarantees that don't exist. So if you find yourself constantly thinking, I need to know this will work before I start, that's completely backward. You must break out of this dangerous mindset. Because the people who escape don't wait for certainty, they make certainty by doing it. Characteristic number 2 of people who actually escape the 9 to 5 to build something of their own is they understand the real worst case scenario. Most people who stay stuck overly catastrophize. They think, if I quit my job and this doesn't work out, I'm gonna end up homeless and my life is gonna be ruined. But is it actually true? Probably not. See, the worst case scenario is you spend 3 to 12 months grinding on your side hustle project and you move back in with your parents or you stay on a friend's couch for a few months while you find another 9 to 5 job. That's it. That's the worst case. In fact, that worst case scenario would be considered heaven to a lot of people right now who are actually struggling to put food on the table. Your worst case, if your side hustle doesn't work out, is you just stay with a friend or your parent. Not bad. In fact, some people like living with their parents or with roommates. But here's what's even crazier. By not taking the risk, you're accepting a life you know to be bad. So a lot of people who stay in their 9 to 5 job that they hate, they choose to accept that guaranteed bad life to avoid taking the risk of potentially escaping, with the worst case of just finding another job at that guaranteed bad life. So by betting on yourself, there's really only upside and essentially no downside. The people who escape the 9 to 5 realize that the risk of trying and failing is way smaller than the cost of never trying at all. Because if you don't try, you'll never know, and that never knowing will haunt you for decades. Now, characteristic 3 is people who escape have a very high bias for action. So they don't sit on an idea for months. Within 1 week of having the idea, they're testing it. They're not perfect, polished, but they're moving. For example, I launched my software engineering career coaching program within 3 to 5 days of a mentor of mine just telling me, hey, this could be a good idea. Why don't you do it? Within a few days, I was already working on the landing page and the launch. Meanwhile, people who stay stuck spend weeks and months preparing rather than actually taking action and getting some initial feedback or progress. See, thinking about something before doing it is just procrastination disguised as action. You think you're doing something, but deep down you're just sitting there, not actually putting yourself out there or getting any real feedback. In fact, it was the same when I started my YouTube channel. It's not like I sat there for 6 months writing dozens of scripts, learning cinematography, doing tons of market analysis and research on YouTube, taking a bunch of courses. All I did was I spent maybe 1 or 2 hours writing down a few ideas. I just picked one and I went for it. And almost 6 years later, I just kept iterating week after week after week, video after video after video. And over time, it just blossomed into a successful business. But I never would have done that if I spent months and months preparing without actually putting myself out there and trying. Overthinking kills more businesses than bad ideas ever will. Now, on the flip side, the 4th characteristic that sets apart people who actually lead the 9 to 5 and the people who don't is relentless follow through. So people who escape follow through for months, even years, before they see results. So it's kind of a yin and yang. The last principle was a bias for action. So trying a bunch of things, but this one is once you try something and you get some level of traction, you need to keep following through for years and years and years until you hit the exponential curve and it takes off. Let me give you another example related to my story. For the first 6 months of launching my career coaching program, I had almost no results. Nobody was interested in working with me. I wasn't able to show students that it's worth investing in their career, working with mentors to get 6-figure jobs. But I didn't give up. I kept trying over and over and over again. And finally on the 20th, the 30th, maybe the 40th student I talked to, I was finally able to get some traction, and I built a cohort of 10 to 20 students who wanted to work with me. But again, if I'd quit early after a few failures, then I would have never built what I built today. And same thing on the YouTube channel. It took me a year and a half to get my first viral video. I was posting every 1 to 2 weeks for a year and a half, getting dozens of views maximum, until I finally had one video go viral a year and a half in. So sure, you need to have a bias for action, but you need to actually have a relentless follow through for the things that you get some kind of initial traction on. So the most successful entrepreneurs I've seen have an attitude of running tons of experiments. And as soon as they get some kind of traction, they just double down and commit to doing tons and tons of volume in that one category. Now, the fifth characteristic that I've seen that really separates people who are able to successfully break free from the 9-to-5 and build their dream job is they take full accountability for everything, not partial accountability, full accountability. Let me give you an example. Let's say someone on your team messes up. A video goes out late, an email has a typo, or a customer has a bad experience. See, people who stay stuck, they tell themselves, it's not my fault. That was the editor, that was the writer, that was the coach, not me. But the person who escapes says, that was my problem and I own the outcome. So it doesn't matter whose fault it is on paper. As a business owner, the buck ends with you for everyone's problem because you're the face of the brand, you own the company, and therefore it's your responsibility to deal with it, not the person who works for you. And that way, when you take full accountability, you stop making excuses. So for example, let's say a video goes out late. Option A is I blame the editor. Oh, the editor sucks. It's their fault. I get mad at them. I maybe yell at them a bit. They feel bad, and then nothing changes. Or option B is the video goes out late. I take full accountability for that. It's my fault the video went out late. How can I improve? Well, I can be a better manager. I can institute a better timeline. I can work on a content calendar so we have videos finished weeks in advance so we never publish anything late. Do you see that subtle shift? When you blame other people for your problems, you never give yourself the chance to actually improve. And finally, the sixth characteristic of people who successfully escape the 9-to-5 and build something of their own is they have relentless self-belief that outweighs everyone else's doubt. Here's the reality. 99 out of 100 people will tell you that your idea is not going to work. Your friends will be skeptical and your family will be concerned. In fact, I remember when I started my YouTube channel about 6 years ago, I told a friend of mine, my brother told a friend of his that I was starting this channel, and that friend turned to him and said, bro, why is Aman trying to make a YouTube channel? YouTube is already saturated. It's 2020. PewDiePie has come and gone. That game is done. He'll never pass 10,000 subscribers and he'll never make it into a full-time thing. Instead, he should just quit and focus on a stable 9-to-5 job. Imagine if I'd listened to that guy. I would have never done what I did today. But even my own mom, when I first started, told me that I was a little bit out there in terms of what I thought I was going to be able to achieve in the long term. See, the vast majority of people have not been able to do what you want to do, so they all think it's not possible or it's not realistic. The people who actually make it don't think about the word possible, realistic, rational. They just have relentless self-belief, they take accountability for everything, they run a bunch of experiments, and they actually follow through. See, all these people giving you advice, again, it's not real advice because they haven't actually done what you want to do. They're just telling you their own fears. And the way you know this is if you talk to someone who's actually achieved this goal you want, they're not going to tell you it's not possible. They're going to ask you what your plan or strategy is. In fact, if you go to Mark Zuckerberg and tell him, I'm working on starting the next Facebook, he's not going to laugh at you. He's going to ask you direct targeted questions and try to mentor you to do it because he's done it. So he knows it's possible. And same thing with me. If you come to me saying, hey, I want to be a YouTuber, I'm not going to laugh in your face. I'm going to work with you directly to try to understand where you're at and where you want to go. And that's why this is the golden rule of advice. You only take advice from someone who has done the thing that you want to do. Full stop. If your friend has never built a business, they can't tell you how to build a business. If your parents haven't escaped the 9-to-5, they're not going to tell you how to escape the 9-to-5. So you need to trust yourself more than you trust the detractors. You have to believe in your vision so strongly that it outweighs all the doubt around you. And that's not arrogance, it's clarity. Because you've thought about this deeply, you've evaluated the risks, and you've made the decision. And no one else's opinions are going to change that about you. So those are the 6 characteristics of people that I've seen who've been able to successfully escape the 9-to-5 versus the people who stay stuck. If you're new here, my name is Aman. I was able to quit my software engineering 9-to-5 job and build a 7-figure business online. And on this channel, I break down the lessons and playbooks that I wish I had 5 years ago when I first started. So if you're interested in that, please subscribe. And if you're interested in a different topic, go ahead and leave a comment down below. I'm always interested to hear what questions you guys have. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you in the next video.